Just a Thought podcast. We are back with another one. Shout out to my co-host Andre, could not make it. Tion. Well, we got to introduce another co-host today. He's been on the show multiple times, but we are introducing him as a co-host today. Tim Teck is in the building, aka Tim. Much love, much respect. And we got some other people in the episode as well. Yardman Podcast, big up Tanil, Donna V, Yardman Podcast. We got DJ Soul Child in the building as well. Y'all go check out his music on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube. He's on TikTok. My man is blowing up. And shout out to, of course, this is family right here. Working on his doctorate, but we're speaking into it in the future. PD, a professor, a philanthropist, teaches at Greenwich High School. Anthony Lopez, Mr. Lopez, Dr. Lopez, whatever you want to call him. Thank y'all for coming on today's show, y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
man.
me.
Big up here.
Yeah, man. Big up, big up, big up. All right, man. So we got a lot to talk about today. And we're gonna start off with the aftermath of what just happened on November 6th. And I read an article, y'all, and it comes as no surprise because we saw the statistics and we saw the numbers. Like, and unfortunately there has become a lot of young black conservatives, and it showed in this election. And it was a disappointment for me, being from the States but not living here, living there now. It was a disappointment, just to show within the community that the trust is gone, right? Because look at the way we supported Obama. And this is what I was saying on y'all podcast, the Yadman podcast. Look how we supported Obama. There was no support for Kamala Harris at all. And it showed on November 6th. So I want to hear y'all opinion, and anyone can start, but like, obviously, what was the problem? What was the problem?
Can I jump in because I'm older than you, Tim?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Absolutely. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I pulled the elder card. Thank you.
Man.
You get three of those. That's
okay,
three.
that's my one. That's my one. That's one.
I guess one per year.
One more year.
So let me jump in and say I appreciate y'all for having me on 100%. I don't teach at Greenwich High anymore. I'm at a school called Teck, and I am one of the few business teachers who also teach computer science. So it's wild. I'm also a priest. We didn't say that part, but I'm also a former politician who almost ran the Democratic Party in a white town. So let's start there, right? Who won office in a white town full of white folks with maybe 1,000 to 2,000 black people, 1% of the population. There was support for Kamala Harris. I initially thought the same thing that everybody's thinking. There wasn't enough. 77, 78% of black men voted for Kamala Harris. That's a lot of support. There are no young black conservatives. That's a myth. There are a lot of young black men who are disillusioned, disenfranchised, feeling left out, left behind, not by the Democratic Party per se, but by all politics. And what they found in Trump is the same thing we found in Trump when I grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s and 90s, was someone who people wanted to be, not because he was the best person, but because Trump has money, because Trump has influence, because Trump has power, because Trump, this cycle especially, said stuff that people were not willing to say. This was a vote not for Trump, but against the entire system. And there's something to be said, and we'll see how this shakes out in this conversation. But black men are not immune to sexism and misogyny. And so there were a lot of factors at play that have absolutely nothing to do with Kamala Harris, the person, but the systemic nature of, and I'm going to blow this show up by saying what I'm about to say, piss a bunch of people off, maybe not here, but in who are going to watch. Black men have a white man master complex. We want
That's
to
a fact,
be
bro.
white men.
It's clear.
No,
We
that's
want
true,
to
man.
be
Enough that, man. That.
we want to be everything he is because he
Yeah.
represents to us success. He represents to us what it means to be equal. He represents to us what it means to be masculine. Our masculinity is seen through the lens of Eurocentric white masculinity, but that masculinity came at the expense of us. And so everything he was able to provide to his woman, to his family, to everything, he got that off our backs and off our sweat and off our work. And so we want that. Listen to what our women say to us. You're not a man because you can't do this and you can't provide and you can't do this. And so the picture of providence, the picture of power is Donald Trump, because Donald Trump represents that Eurocentric white kind of thing that we want to be. And if we don't get a hold of ourselves right now and shake the hell out of these young kids and say, listen, that man said everything he said, but look at who he put in his cabinet. Nobody that looks like you. Not a single person that looks like you. He's given immunity to police to actually beat and kill you. So what did he do for you? As a matter of fact, he didn't send you a stimulus check. He held the check up for 2 weeks so they could reprint them with his name on it. But we are so ignorant to what's going on that that's what happened. 20+% of African American men. There are no African American conservative young men. They're a bunch of disillusioned young men. And let me not say that. There are some, but there are disillusioned men who voted for Trump this year. And we need to call that out. And I mean, I've been in the rooms. You guys don't get to pick your candidates. We do. Mm-hmm. A room of 75 people picked in Connecticut who was going to run for governor. Or I think there were like 200 something of us. I was a delegate to the convention. There's no choice that you have. Kamala Harris was the only time we ever got a choice, in the sense that there was somebody who represented our interests. Who makes up most of the entrepreneurs now? People who look like everybody on the screen. Where was she putting money? Into entrepreneurship. Who wants to own places where we sell weed and dispensaries and all of that so we don't go to jail? Us. Where was she saying? Legalize marijuana. Right? All of this stuff. But Trump went into the barbershop and had some shiny gold sneakers, and all of a sudden he's for us. It's our fault too. Right? I assume everybody on here is either close to 30 or over 30.
Yeah. I like what you're saying.
Get in there.
A lot of personal accountability.
Right. So where were we in the streets with these kids? Mm-hmm. Where were we? I'm gonna start my rant.
I think I love what you said. I think it's interesting too, because I'm from the South. I live in the South now, but I lived up north, for a while. So the different dynamic and the different demographic down here is definitely interesting. That there's something that somebody told me last week. We were talking about it, and they said to me, I'm gonna read it. They said the first time people voted for Trump, they were shocked, right? The second time, they meant they weren't. They understood exactly what they were giving up as far as morals, 100%. And they were okay with it. Mm-hmm. And that resonated with me, because I told my friend this, who was really upset when Kamala lost. I said, everything in me as a black man, what I represent, for those of you who don't know, maybe Ant, but Raymond knows, I founded a social justice group years ago, right around 2020, and I was heavily speaking to politicians, governors, whatever you may have it. And I found myself at that time disillusioned, because I felt like there was only one way to live a life and not see the bigger picture of politics. I never wanted to be in politics, but when we have these conversations as Black men, it's important to hold everybody accountable, but also bring about a different perspective. And I think what's happening right now is the 20% of Black men that voted for Trump, they don't care about the morals, right? Because they see something that benefits them, financial gain, whatever. I personally feel like Kamala ran a horrible campaign. I never thought she would win.
I agree. I 100%.
I never thought she would win, and this is why. Because the campaign was very outdated. It was very like, I'm going to put entertainers in front of you, and they are going to convince you that this is right, rather than let the policy speak for themselves.
True.
And I say that in a sense of, she had some great policies, but when you have, and I live in Atlanta, you have Meg Thee Stallion come up and twerk, and I'm there at that convention, and I'm listening to what she's saying, and people are asking real questions, and she said, we'll get to that, but for now, watch Meg Thee Stallion shake her ass. It's kind of confusing to me. And for lack of better words, I did not want Trump to win, but I knew he was going to, just based off of the trajectory of where this country is and how people wanted something different. And I know he's been president before, but when I say something different, I say something in the sense of Kamala's already been in term. This is what people are saying down in Atlanta. And I knew that from listening to them that they weren't going to support Kamala. I knew it. I knew listening to them, and I said, dang, we're in trouble. Like, if she's not reaching out to Atlanta, and she's been here multiple times, I wonder how she's going to be able to win the rest of the country. This is just me.
That was a bit of complacency, like just expecting. That was a part of expecting the black majority areas to vote for you as well. I feel like that. No, Anthony, I see you shaking your head. Firstly, let me make it known. I am not American. No intention of ever becoming one of you guys. No offense, I'm Jamaican, African at heart.
I mean, technically American, but okay.
Yeah, I'm American in the concept of North, South, or Central America. I'm not from the United States of America. Let's clarify. And I get to see things from a different perspective. I see it from the outside as a Jamaican, and I live in Europe, so I see it. I have a lot of conversations with Europeans, how they see it. Firstly, I think 90% of Europe would have voted for Kamala, like quite easily. She wouldn't have to run a campaign here. The marketing against Trump in Europe is so good that he would have lost easily. They probably would have put him in prison. Like, they probably would have, he would not have made it anywhere near that election ballot in Europe. That's how Europeans see him foremost. Jamaica now, it's a different thing now. What's most important to Jamaicans? Immigration. And that's the only thing they're scared of from Trump, because that affects their families back in Jamaica and getting their families there. That affects a lot of people. That's the biggest issue they're concerned with, but it's not the only issue. Where I think Kamala went wrong is she should have picked an issue that appealed to everyone. She was picking too many issues. If I hear a man saying, I'm going to give you this job, I'm going to make the economy better for you can make more money, even if he doesn't tell me how he's doing it, let me finish. Even if he doesn't tell me how he's doing it, I'm going to be more inclined to go with him, because a lot of these people that are voting, Anthony, they don't have your education level. They're not going to read a policy. They're not going to read his mandates that he's setting forward. All they're going to go is scroll on social media. Oh, Trump posted a new video or something, and he's saying he's going to bring back the jobs and ensure that there's all manufacturing. That's what's going to resonate with them. That's it. Like, you have to bring your campaign down to a very normal level. You can't be up here appealing to the average person. You have to get down to their level. That's what he did. He's a freaking multi-millionaire billionaire that have failed at business multiple times, and he still convinced them that he's successful and he's going to get them jobs. He's going to do this. People are willing to say, okay, even if you put in immigration policies that don't benefit my family, that's their problem, because I'm going to make more money.
But listen to
and
the
that's
fallout.
what it came down to.
But listen to the fallout, right? So she really lost because of 100,000 votes between Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Okay.
Nobody ever thought it was going to come down to anything outside of those three states. And she lost because the Muslim population left. That's not an immigration issue. Now there were some issues with outreach there. But if you listen to the fallout now, what you're hearing is people who voted for her that were against the war in Palestine are now like, what did we do? When you listen to Hispanic people, Latino people who voted for her, and there were Hispanic men who called in to radio stations and said, I'm never voting for a woman. She belongs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So we have to look at that too, right? There were black men who said, I'm never voting for a woman. She can't run this country. There were white women who said, she's a woman. I'm never, first off, white women voted against, and this is going to be crazy, but they voted
60,
against their own
yeah.
vaginas. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, right? They vote against themselves all the time. And white women have voted consistently with the Republican Party forever. And if we want to talk about 20% of black men, around 11, 12% of black men vote Republican anyway. So we lost about 8%. Right.
Yeah,
So it really wasn't a whole sea change. So all of that narrative in the media is wrong. Black people showed up for Kamala. That 91% of black folk, somewhere around that, voted for Kamala. But when you say that it's uneducated people who did it, you're correct. Number one, because most people with college degrees voted for Kamala Harris. The fact that America has to have its policies or its candidates dumb down stuff so they understand. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say Donald Trump in office, the economy was worse. That Donald Trump in office, we lost more jobs under him than any other president. That when Donald Trump left office, this economy was free falling into inflation. People knew that. And I think we have to stop giving people a benefit of the doubt and start saying that people are racist. We have to start saying that black people. Let me finish this point. I wrote part of my thesis for my first master's on job satisfaction for African Americans, and in that I talked about internalized racism. Black people, white folks no longer have to be racist or take racist ideas and expound them in our communities. We do it ourselves. We internalize racism in such a way that we see ourselves through the eyes of the racist ideas. And that is a psychological phenomenon that has been studied, right? We start to internalize and believe it. You know, it's the most crass thing to say, but most people, most black folk, when you see a group of young black men walking down the block with hoodies in a certain neighborhood, you go, damn, let me clutch everything. That is a stereotype thing. I see my man DJ Soulchild has this.
Nah, I was gonna disagree with you respectfully. That's not racism. That's anti-blackness. That's anti-blackness. What comes with racism is power. We don't have.
Thank you. I've been waiting for somebody to say it because I think we use racism like everybody has the power.
No,
and if you don't have the power, you don't control.
That's not what I'm saying.
No. And I know what you were saying. I was just correcting you. The correct term is anti-blackness.
No, that's what. Okay, let me flip it this way. So Ibram X. Kendi writes about it this way: that it's not racism is not a thing per se. That everything stems from racist ideas, right? That racism itself is because of power, or the impact of racist ideas becomes racism through the use of power or the weaponization of power. I don't disagree with that, right? Racist ideas have no impact unless you have power over people. So I agree with that part. But I'm saying that we've internalized the racist ideas, the racist ideology. And so we live our lives through that guise, right? We do have power not over resources, but we have power over perception in our communities. We have power over how we interact in our communities. And we interact through those racist ideas. We don't have the power to judge resources and take things away from people and make racist ideas impactful in that sense, right? I'm not necessarily going to say, oh, I have a job for you, but I'm not going to give it to you because you're black, right? That's a ridiculous postulate. But the racist ideas are what we have internalized. And so when you internalize those racist ideas, it starts to impact your behavior. That's my point. So I agree with the power part. So maybe I was indelicate in what I was saying, but I agree with that.
Let me ask y'all this. Let me ask y'all this. Now that unfortunately we've seen the results, what can we do? How can we coexist with Trump in office? What is necessary for us
We
to move forward?
I'll answer that.
Go ahead.
So again, I don't know if you guys seen my most recent
No, I
controversy
have.
on
Yeah, I
TikTok. You
have.
have, right?
Yeah.
So I went to McDonald's. I drove to McDonald's and recorded like a dummy and posted it on TikTok. And I got a lot of blowback from the pro-Palestinian movement. But I also got a lot of support from the black community. A lot of members from that community who I used to have some crazy back and forth with on the app. And even they were like sticking beside me, right? The point I'm trying to make is like ever since the election, black people holistically, at least from what I've seen, our antennas is up and it's like a us against the world type of thing. Like we blaming everybody.
Yep.
Everybody catching the smoke in my eyes. The pro
Yep.
Pally movement, Trump supporters,
Yep.
the Latino community, white women. I feel like the whole world is against us and they minimized our what we deal with in this country as far as with racism, anti-blackness. They minimized it. And again, I understand there's a G-side going on in Palestine. There's also an active G-side in Congo and Haiti,
Yep.
and they're also dealing with racism and
Mhm.
anti-blackness at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's not being spoken about anywhere near as much as the Palestinian movement. And I feel like now that we feel like it's a us against the world type of thing going on, we need to like work out our kinks in our community. Like for example, we got to
Oof,
figure
yes.
out the motherfucking homophobia problem. We got to deal with that shit. We
Yeah.
got to nip that in the fucking butt. The whole black men versus black women shit on TikTok and
Mhm.
Instagram, these fucking red pill podcasts, they all gotta fucking go. Like this is stupid. Black men saying they don't need black women saying they don't need black men.
Black men.
Cancel all that shit out. It's stupid. Everybody in the black community who is Christian crying about pronouns, shut the fuck up. Like that's gotta be deaded too. Crying about pronouns is crazy work, right? It's just like little bitty things that just got to get like worked out. I can't explain it. Like I'm trying to say it as
DJ Socha, let
intellectually.
me ask you a question, boss.
Good, good.
Because I'm new to your content. I definitely want to tap into it. Do you think that based off of what you just said, a lot of the social media blogs like Spiritual World, do you think they play a factor into it? Because I
Yes,
do. I think
especially
that
the
they
shade
spread
room.
false narratives.
Yes, I agree. The shade room gotta go.
They got to go.
Like they all gotta go. They're so
Because that's
anti-black.
not
It's
real
insane.
journalism. That's not real
Nah.
journalism. It's not authentic. And what I'm seeing, especially in the community, is that too many people hang their hat on just reading that information and going with it rather than doing a deeper search. And
Yeah.
partially because, again, what does Spiritual World and Shade Room do? They post entertainment, then they'll
Right.
post something real, and you think that that something entertainment is
It's the
correlated
real
to something
shit.
real.
Right.
They are one of the main key factors of this weird like idea that black men and black women are like so against each other. Outside of white men and women and outside of Latino men and women, black men and women are the most what's the word I'm looking for? Um the
Magnetic.
most together, if that makes
Cohesive.
Prominent,
Together.
sense.
yeah,
Cohesive.
Yeah.
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 Out of
cohesive,
any
yeah,
race in the world. So
yeah.
that narrative is fucking weird. They
Well,
gotta
they're
get that.
destroying, or they're destroying the household. What they're trying to do is
Yes.
create not diversion. Not what is it? Divisiveness within the community, right? And
Right.
again, being in a prominent city, like I know some of you are outside of the states, but DJ Socha, you're in Jersey, right?
I'm in Jersey, Atlantic City.
All right, so I'm in Atlanta. You guys have heard the stories about Atlanta. One thing that I love about this city is that the community of blackness is so strong that we do not pay attention to the BS that's being put out there,
In
right?
Jersey, they call y'all Black Hollywood.
Bro, it is.
That's what
It
we
is
call
Black
y'all in
It's Black
Hollywood.
Jersey.
Hollywood for
It's
sure.
Black Hollywood, yeah.
Because you can literally go down the block and see a doctor, an athlete, an entrepreneur. You could also see a stripper. You could also see a person that's in the streets. But you're getting these different demographics in different areas, so you're seeing so much. So now you're like you can't fool me on online. You can't tell me that there's no black love or men versus women. First off, what you bring to the table and who's going to be the provider and 50-50, that's all stupid. No other races is having those conversations and it's ignorant. I hate it.
But that also doesn't mean that there isn't things in the black community between black cis men and black cis women that need to work on.
Absolutely.
Because I looked up these numbers, right, and this number wasn't inflated or fake. The number one unalive to black women, unfortunately, is DV from a black man.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. That got to get fixed now.
That's like when you can't when it comes to, if you use a crime stat like that, like the number one people to kill Chinese people are Chinese people.
No,
I know. White people are white
I'm
people.
agreeing
Right?
with you. No,
So
I know.
So you
I'm agreeing
can't
with you.
take that little tiny statistics and just say that it is an internal issue. Like you get that these things happen based on your proximity. But I like what you guys are saying, and I like that you guys have identified like the role these blogs have played in like having people think about issues that they should not really be focused on because it doesn't really benefit them going forward, you know, like these tiny little issues. Like whenever I scroll on my phone and I see these American things, I'm like, we don't do this stuff in Jamaica. Like we have this stuff set out already. Like, you know, we don't have to say who's bringing what to the table. Like you have a conversation with that at home. You don't need to go on the internet to decide how you're going to run your household or how you're going to find a partner or something like that. Like it's internalized. What I would love to see from black people in America is to get behind someone and an ideology where they can see this person is our voice for us. That's where if we
done
backtrack
that.
to the real conversation,
We done
that no. That's not like Dr. King, Malcolm X vibe. Like I'm looking for someone there to come forward and be that voice. Like even though Obama is no longer in politics, like he still could be that voice or people like that.
You want somebody to be like a godfather to black people? Like
I'm just tossing out a
I'm
name.
confused.
Don't attack me. I'm just saying, like,
Be the
I feel
change
like
you
you
want to
guys
see
need
in
a
a vein.
leader that just does this for you. And Kamala, if you have a black woman running for president, she should have been it. But I didn't get that energy as well.
Nah.
You don't think you need a leader that can be like?
I can't agree with that.
I'll say two things. Number
Yeah,
one,
wait on a
Kamala
leader.
had 107 days.
Can't wait on leader, Tonell. You're right.
107 days. Number two, you can't get that kind of voice in the black community these days, not because it's not there, right? But the system is set up in such a way that there's no soapbox for you to stand on, right? I have thought about this a lot, just like you. Malcolm and Martin were murdered. But the real devastating murder to me, but aside from those two, was Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was shot in his driveway in front of his kids, in front of his wife. Medgar Evers was doing the work on the ground in one of the places where he knew he was going to get killed, right? To get black people to the polls, to vote, to do all those other kind of things. Medgar Evers was an educated black man. So was Myrlie Evers, an educated woman, all of that. I think that I look at Al Sharpton. And first off, I have a lot of issues with Al Sharpton, right?
Who doesn't?
From the fact that I remember Al Sharpton from Tawana Brawley, see, up close, right? Living in Brooklyn, growing up in Brooklyn, Al Sharpton up close. Listening to Al Sharpton, and I haven't watched cable news since the election. I'm hoping to be one of those people that drops the ratings so bad they start getting rid of people. But we don't have, I don't think we have that space, and I don't think America is going to allow for a voice like that to come forth. I think, just like DJ Soulchild was saying, there's some stuff we have to do within our community. Can we have that voice or those sets of voices inside the community? I think we can. But I think it's going to take, it can't just be one voice. It has to be one band, one sound, right? Where we all kind of come together in this kind of unified way. And I love the fact that black people have pulled away from everything and said, it's us against y'all.
Mm-hmm. Tonell,
What I think
I'm gonna
about-
let you go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I think about all these guys is that I think we need to be more like concerned citizens or concerned black people. I don't think we should wait on a leader to lead us in any direction. I think we should adapt a new concept, if you want to call it, to be great followers. Not a follower of somebody, could be a follower of an idea, a follower of a struggle, you know. But not to lean on anyone for our to carry us to anywhere, but to lean on ourselves, you know, look at our situation and first to realize that we're in a situation. Because if you don't realize that you're in a situation, you'll never try to look for a way out. And I
Facts.
think we're very comfortable in this
Yeah. Let
in like the
me.
spaces we are these days. We're too comfortable, and
Yeah.
and that
Let
causes a
me.
big problem.
Docile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to backtrack on what you said, right? Because DJ Soulchild, he brought up a lot of key points on what we need to do moving forward. But how does that? My question is because I don't want to sound stupid. My question is how does that work? Because we have so many, we have we have a lot of brothers and sisters in the states, but we all come from different backgrounds, and this is gonna lead me to my next question. How do we come together as a community? Because we tend to be the only community that has a problem accepting another black person from another country. How do we do that? Because in order for us to knock down these
You talking about
problems that we
you
need
talking
to
about
go through,
xenophobia?
yeah. How do we
Xenophobia, okay.
how do we get past that? Because in order for us to knock down these things that we need to get through, how do we get past that? Because that's number one. We have an issue accepting other black cultures, and I would
Uh,
say other black cultures accepting us as well.
I,
We need to
How do we
dismantle
deal
we
with
some
had
of
that?
this
them.
conversation the other day briefly, and I love the diaspora war because that's what you're essentially talking about, right? Like just the Caribbean culture, the accepting African culture and African American culture all into one. Me and you talked about this, but I
Yeah.
think a part of what happens is we are not comfortable with accepting different cultures because we haven't seen it. One of my boys from down south was like, I haven't been around too many Caribbean Africans. I said, I can see that. You know, you're from the south, you haven't been put in the space to actually be around Africans or Caribbeans. You just don't know. So you're actually ignorant to that statement. But I think what happens is when you are around them, are you accepting their culture? Do you have an elitist mindset? Are you saying no, I don't like that, I'm better? Or are you saying, okay, well, what you're doing is wrong because I haven't seen it? And I think that's where the divisiveness comes from, at least in my opinion, and what I've seen in the community. Are we willing to accept the fact that there are many different black people, right? In Jersey alone, there's tons of different cultures, whether it be Haitians, Jamaicans, um, African Americans, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's hard for us sometimes to say we are all together, but it's okay to have different culture too. You
You
know,
guys ever been to Church Avenue in Brooklyn?
absolutely.
That's exactly what we need. If you go on Church Ave, you walk the whole 4 or 5 blocks. It's nothing but African Americans, Black Caribbean, and Black Africans. They
Yep.
literally are. They get along just fine. If they could do it in Brooklyn, it can happen anywhere. And to answer
You
the
think it can
host
happen in
question,
Mississippi?
okay, maybe I don't know about Mississippi now. I don't know about Mississippi. Mississippi's difficult, but I know for a fact it can happen in Florida. We got Little Haiti and all that stuff.
Of
I know
course.
for a fact it can happen in Atlanta. Atlanta is
Yeah.
Black Hollywood.
So it's happening now, but they're not accepting it. So that's my next point.
Right.
It's very divisive here, right? Like there are a lot of black people in business together and different things like that. But if I were to take you guys somewhere down here, you'd be like, okay, I see the business, I see the culture mixed in, but you still got African neighborhoods, you still got Caribbean neighborhoods, and they're separate sometimes. It's not like New York. New York is so big, you have no choice but to be around each other, especially when you're in neighborhoods like Harlem, Brooklyn, whatever.
So the problem with the that's on the surface a true statement. Underneath the hood, in some, because when I grew up in Brooklyn, I grew up around Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and African Americans, and I hung out with a lot of West Indians. Um, my own family is this weird mix of African American, French, and African, right? Um, so, but even in there, in our block on this corner, that those were the Spanish buildings, right? That's where all the Spanish people lived, and we just lumped everybody into this category of Spanish, even though they were Puerto Rican, Dominican, and Cuban. And then all the black people, all African Americans, lived up the rest of the block. We silo ourselves too, right? People just kind of like to be around people around their own culture, and we like to dip and dab in each other's culture and then go back to our own culture. And so
True.
it kind of is the melting pot and all the other kind of stuff. But I'm not sure if we can solve that necessarily. And then I don't even have an answer to that question. But I don't think it's always. I think it's like you said. Sometimes people don't know. Um, but I'm not, I at least where I grew up, even in that siloed kind of thinking, we played together, we dated each other. My best friend growing up was I had two best friends. One was African American, one was Dominican. I didn't know he was Dominican. I just knew his name was Eric and his mother talked Spanish, right? So I don't know if there's a xenophobia problem in the community in that way, and I'm probably not the best person to talk to about it because I have that background growing up where I just was involved in every kind of cultural thing that you can think of. But we had the African Street Festival, right? We had all of these different representative things in old Brooklyn. I'm not going to say you have it now because New Brooklyn is something completely different. But I don't know. I just like I feel like I would go down to Atlanta and I wouldn't expect to see a division based on I don't like your culture, so I don't business with you.
It's representation, right? Like DJ Soulchild said it best, like funny wise, like if we had a church have in most major black cities, I think that this will solve a lot of issues. But it also goes back to how are these cultures being represented? Is it a wash down culture? Are you just touching the surface level or are you going on a deeper level, right? Like, for example, when we work, if we work in corporate, if we work in any companies, how are they going about talking about Black History Month or anything black representation? Is it one of those things where we feel like, okay, you're not really touching upon it, but you're acknowledging it, so I guess that's okay. It's kind of like if I say, oh, I went to Jamaica and I got my hair braided and I had some jerk chicken, I'm Jamaican. No, there's a deeper understanding and meaning of when you go to Jamaica, and the same is
Yeah,
said when you tap
big
into
time.
these different communities. These people want to feel like their communities are being represented the right way. So when you go to an affluent black city, you hope to see that being represented. You know, like when I go to DC, I see so many different cultures and it's represented the right way. And there are some places in Atlanta too, but there are some times where I'm just like, you guys aren't doing that right. Who's in charge of this? Do you have these people from these countries actually stepping in and wanting to lead and say, this is how we want to be represented and we want to be represented in the best light? Because a lot of times we are not being represented in the best light. You know, you guys hear about New York or Atlanta or Philly, you hear about either Black Hollywood or New York stinks or there's so many people, there's so much violence. What about the positivity part, right?
Whoa!
The
I have
positive
New York
things.
stinks. Whoever said that, let me know.
Bro, I hear it all the time. But the point I'm
Let
trying to
me
make is going back to what Ray asked. It's gonna be hard because you need right representation, but you also need the right space. You know, we
yeah,
enter spaces, but we don't take up space. And I think that is one of the biggest problems.
yeah.
But
Let
going
me
to
let me Tanil,
I was just
Donovan,
going
let
to
me
talk
ask
about
y'all because y'all are from out of the states. How
Yeah.
can how can we build a relationship to where we can trust each other, right? Because we're only talking we're from the states, like we're talking about our experience. How do you think we could build like going like if we're overseas, we see each other on the street. How can that relationship build? Like coming from Jamaica, like how do you think we can build that relationship and have
Well,
trust?
well, in Jamaica, there's one thing that always brings us together. One thing that gels us together, even though we don't like it. But it's a struggle. We identify that, we're in a bad situation, you know. We're trying to get out of it. We look
Yeah.
at our brothers and we say, all right, we're not going to try to fight you. We're trying to put ourselves in a car and try to drive out this way, you know? So I think to find a common ground and a reason to try to, build better relations and look at each other in different lights would be the best way to get out of this situation, honestly. What you
Okay.
said, David?
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro. Like at the end of the day, when you're walking down the street, no one sees a Jamaican flag or a Trinidadian flag or a Haitian
No,
flag
only
on
when
you.
this the
They only see
Olympics.
this. They only see this on you, you know.
Right.
So realize that you are one the same. I hate that's a strong word. Like there's so many stereotype and division that still goes on. And I think Anthony's experience growing up is one that we should try to fabricate or just try to create for a lot of people. Like maybe have more activities and more engagement. Like if you like for him, he doesn't see it as an issue because he grew up where he was surrounded by all these cultures and he just like participated in everything. So he's like, I'm one with everyone because he grew up in it. How can we create that for the people that are in their apartment buildings in their own culture, still eating the rice and peas and the jerk chicken every day? How do we get them to go eat some Ethiopian food or something like that? You know, just integrating other cultures and share pieces of them until you realize that you're one black people. You're all coming from Africa. They need to find that. They
Ooh,
need to
I'm
find that.
glad you taught. I'm
They're all
glad
coming
you
from Africa.
touched upon.
You need to recognize and realize that, man.
I'm glad y'all touched upon. I'm glad you touched upon that because I want everybody to answer this. So I recently saw a video. Trick Daddy. If y'all don't know who Trick Daddy is, Trick Daddy is a famous rapper from Florida. If y'all don't know who he is, he made a statement saying that he was not from Africa. He is from America. His roots come from America. He will not be looked at as an African. What do y'all think about that?
I'm not
Trick
mad.
Daddy is 50 years old. He's done more drugs than I can possibly name. To really sit up here and really kind of double down on what he said, I there's so many layers to pull back, right? Like if you want to just talk about it from an educational standpoint and say, okay, you of African descent, we kind of know that you're black. But if you don't want to be identified as African, so be it. Don't worry, that's fine. But I don't think he went deep enough to really explain what he was trying to say. So people just ran with it, right? That's clickbait, rage bait. And who was the first people to post about it? Spiritual World, right? And they probably didn't even showcase the whole interview. They probably just showed bits and pieces of it, you know? I get annoyed when I hear like, oh, I don't want to be considered black or African or whatever, because it's like, go deeper than that. Don't just dismiss the fact that we are black, right? Go deeper, because when you do that, it's like, oh, it gives a white person the courage to be like, see, you shouldn't see color. It's like, no, 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 no. He has a platform, and I think his responsibility was to use that platform for educational moment. And I just think he didn't. If somebody else wants to chime in and kind of give their perspective on it, but to me, I felt like they didn't do the best. And when I say they, the tabloids, those little journalists, the spiritual world, shade room, they didn't do the best in painting that in a good light.
And let me ask y'all this because Trick Daddy, because I agree with you, Tim. Maybe it was just clickbait, but Trick Daddy is not the only one that denies that. Is it why is it that some of us deny coming from Africa?
Because of the representation Africa is given in the media, especially, when people think about Africa, they don't think about anything good. They only see it as a resource rich country, has a lot of people, and they associate it with poverty. And
But
that has
don't
been the
they
story.
but don't they
That has
have a
been the
kind of
story.
a
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead, go
Continue,
ahead, go ahead.
please. I was
Nah,
saying that
don't
has
they,
been the story that has been the story since I was young, and it hasn't
yeah.
changed since then. The same advertisements, the same documentaries. You know, when you go on social media, you don't see, for example, you don't see like a lot of young entrepreneurs coming out of Africa. There are a lot, but they don't show them in the media. So they don't represent them very well. And if you check, for example, um, tell me if I'm wrong, like some universities in America or all over the world, wherever, when you go there, the African students are at the top of the class, you know, but outside of that, they're not being represented in the correct light. So people don't want to be associated with something that is not represented good. That's what I
I
feel.
have a
The
quote. I have
brand
a quote
identity
here.
of Africa.
I
Oh,
have a
so,
quote, Trick
okay.
Daddy. I was reading it. So I ain't never went to Africa. I ain't thinking about going there. I heard it's a beautiful place, and I know it's the motherland, but that's not my mother. I ain't going there. They ain't eating pork and beans out there. There's so many factors with that I'm just like, why? Why even start like that? Why even get into that conversation to where you're already being divisive?
I'm not
Can
mad
I
at.
say something?
Oh, go
You're
ahead.
not mad. Well, hold on, go
Um,
ahead. Go ahead.
all right, Tim. Would you say he's fully incorrect? If he's never been there, he has no
Mm-hmm.
ties there, he knows
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't know anything of the culture, he knows nothing of Africa. Should he
Mm-hmm.
be able to claim being African, not knowing anything about it, not being associated with it, has nothing to do with it? Should he still be able to claim that just because he's of African descent, which is very
I
obvious, you
think
know?
I think to that point, I think education is important and your resources are important, and you have so many tools and factors that allow you not to be ignorant or not knowing. And I know we talked about representation. That seems to be the theme of this, right? Like being
Yeah.
represented the right way. Social media is a powerful tool. Your phone is a powerful tool. You may not have been to a country, but I've been to a lot, but I haven't been to a lot where I look it up and I do my research, right? We do our research. We can't just live off the idea like if we don't go, we shouldn't still learn about it. I've never been to the moon, I've never been out of
True.
space, but yeah, I've learned about planets and been taught things, and you learn from people who have. I blame the fact that he hasn't been put in spaces where people are representing it and he's being able to accept it. You know, put yourself
But
into that room, put yourself into that space.
but even if he were to get himself educated and do all of the good things, do the research, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes back home to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Like if for example, we can talk about the Jamaican context. Because sometimes in Jamaica we're kind of very protective of who we give the title of being Jamaican. A person,
Absolutely.
for example, who will be born in the UK, you know, have Jamaican parents. They grow up in the UK all their life. They eat ackee and saltfish every day of their life. They cook the jerk pork, whatever. When they come to Jamaica, chances are we might not even see them as a Jamaican.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though they're educated, they've lived in the culture. Their track record is straight saying that they're Jamaican, but the Jamaican people just don't accept them just for some reason.
I
You know
think you mentioned
what
it
if
earlier, though, right? You talked about struggle. Maybe their struggle wasn't the same. That's a microaggression.
that is another thing exactly. We even look at that thing. You know, you're born in the UK. We might say that you have a better life. You don't know what it means to be Jamaican. You don't know what it means to struggle, or not what it means to wake up tomorrow and not be able to know what you're going to eat next week or for the weekend or provide for your children. All of these things, because all of these things they come together and they form the word Jamaican. Everything in the package is what makes us Jamaican. What if Chick Daddy was trying to avoid all of that and he took the short way out and he just said what he said? Or it might be, as you said, he did it for clickbait.
Yeah. I
You
think
know?
I think what's interesting too is there is divisiveness in the states too. Like your
Big
poor
time.
down south is different than you being poor up north. That's just a thing. And the same can be said in the Midwest on the West Coast. But I used this analogy the other day. If I kill you with a
Yeah.
gun and I kill you with a knife, what does it matter how you got killed when you're dead? Right. So if the struggle, if we're debating over whose struggle is worse, and if you struggled, that shouldn't be the debate, right? It should be how. indoctrinate our youth into the culture, right? Jamaica represents so many good things. I feel like in the black culture, we want our struggle to be more than the other person's struggle. So we can say we struggled harder, so we get more validation on being black. It's kind of like, all right, whose struggle is worse? So now we're trauma bonding, and we're saying, well, you didn't live the life that I lived. Does that make it any less valid? Right? It's still
Right.
hard. It's still tough. Go ahead, Dan.
Um, I'm I'm gonna say something about that, but I'm not mad at Trick Daddy for two reasons. Um, Number one, brother, feel how you want, right? I don't have to agree with you. You can do whatever you want. Um, that this argument has been around forever. We dealt with it when I was growing up. We deal with it now. The term African American, I was just looking stuff up because I just wanted to know. First appeared in the 1700s. So we can, I think, if we want to talk about African descent, I think we are already talking about it wrong by having a conversation about African descent being about Black people, right? African descent is from everybody, right? Everybody descends from some ancestral link in Africa. I don't care what your skin color is. So, I mean, we say African American because we know, I think, inherently in America, because there were African slaves that were brought over and we come from them. I think that also speaks to some of the divide that we talk about with Black folks that come in from other places. There's not the same history. There's not the same struggle. There's a commonality of struggle in the guise of, and I use this loosely, American racism, but or global racism, whatever you want to call it. But there are different elements of struggle, right? We've had people that come from other countries to say, well, why don't you take advantage of this? And why don't you take advantage of that? And I came here for opportunity, but you've been here and you never did anything that we're trying to do or that we are doing. And then, so there's disconnect there. But he's not entirely wrong to say that I'm not African. He's not, right? He's just not African. There's an argument to be made that we are more American than white folks. But at the end of the day, I don't get bent out of shape between I'm not African, I'm not African American, I'm not this, I'm not that. I guarantee you, Trick Daddy still feels like he's treated like a Black person, that he feels like he's treated in the same struggle, that he feels like he's treated through the guise of his skin tone and his melanin. So whether or not he says he's African or African American or I'm not from there, like you said, clickbait, divisiveness, and we jump on it and we run with it. And it's just irrelevant. We just hold on to the most irrelevant, low-level hanging fruit, and then we can't get together. Because now we're talking about Trick Daddy instead of saying, well, how do we build unity around our shared struggle, our shared identity, our shared cultural experiences in a country that clearly just gave us the middle finger. But I'm not African American, so, seriously?
Yeah,
I
that's a great
know.
point.
Yeah, it's a great point. I know. Some of us got to go. I wanted to do one more topic. If y'all got to go, I understand. But I want to do one more topic. We kind of talked about it, Tanil and Donovan on your podcast. But we gotta bring it back up. And it's a big problem. But I'm gonna use Young Thug as an example. So snitching has always been looked down upon in our community. And we are starting to glorify people that snitch, especially young, talented rappers. Why are we starting to glorify this problem, and why are these rappers getting light after they snitched, and why is this starting to become a big thing?
All right, so let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Anybody in here in the streets?
No.
We all
What you,
civilians.
what you mean by in the streets?
Like in the streets, like you in the
No,
game.
no, nobody's in. No,
No,
no.
All right, so we
I'm
all
not in no.
civilians,
We're
right?
civilians.
So we all civilians, right?
Yeah.
All right, that only pertains to them. Us, that's not snitching, bro. If that's not like
Thank you.
I'm tired of that narrative, bro. I am a fucking tax-paying civilian. I
I pay
got four
taxes.
kids. You feel me? Like I got 4 kids I gotta take care of. Ain't no motherfucking way I'm doing a bid for some random nigga. Like no.
But you also not gonna put yourself in a situation to even be in that.
True.
Exactly. Exactly. Like Gunna allegedly snitching. Who cares?
Who
Like
cares? You don't
he's
pay
in the
my bill.
game. Let,
I'll tell you this right now. The first person that had a problem with snitching was Harriet Tubman. She said, if you don't come back with me, if you don't come with me, or if you go halfway and you want to go back, I gotta kill you because you're gonna tell everybody. She was the first person, bro. She the OG. She the OG of being like, I'm not letting y'all snitch. It's going down. And everybody ran with that. If you really think about it, bro, if you really think about it, snitching is only for people who have that sort of power in the streets. We are not. We are regular civilians that pay taxes, and we're probably not even going to be in that situation. But I promise, if you come ask me, be like, "Yo, you gonna hold down your partner for 20 years?" No, sir. No, I'm not. This is where he lives.
like
Actually, I know his social security.
like
Actually, he owe
really
me money. Let me go give him the
like
number.
really think about it, right? I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm queer, right? Imagine you doing a 20-year bid for another man to be surrounded by nothing but men. This don't make no fucking sense, bro.
None.
Y'all doing that shit? Like
Nobody
niggas
doing
is
that, bro.
Yeah, but DJ.
like niggas is getting vilified for not wanting to be around other men that like men.
But to the point,
Like
those
that's
people
crazy
who
to
do
me.
sign up for that, who are not civilians and have that code and have that level of quote unquote street ethics, I do think it's looked upon as bad because if you know what you're getting into and you know what the risk could be, I do look at you a little weird because you've already signed up for that.
Okay, I understand that.
Right.
I
Yeah.
understand
Wait,
that.
how do you guys like? How do you guys view snitching? Is this only snitching if you're in the game? It's not
In the
snitching if
game.
you're out.
In
Yeah.
the
If you're in
game,
the
yeah.
game, it's snitching. If you're out of the game, you're being a responsible
You're a
citizen.
civilian.
See, here's the problem.
Okay,
I have
okay,
a problem
that's
with
a
that
big
though. I have
difference
a
for us.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's.
yeah, yeah.
I have a problem with that. Hold on, because we're not in the game. We're all civilians. But here's the thing: when it comes to a point where the police is involved, sometimes the police, and I'm gonna use Tanil because Tanil said it the last time, and he was right. Sometimes when there's a situation where we have to say something, the police will play devil's advocate, and that will put us more in danger. Now, when does that become play? Because Tanil,
Well,
you
that's
you
not
brought that up
snitching.
last time.
That's not
Was
snitching. Like I feel like we're
but we
so
we we're, we're
what
not even in a place where we can because we're in a the police put us in a comfortable situation where we can't even say anything.
real quick, do we understand the difference between a rat and a snitch?
No, I
Damn, that's a
mean,
good
yeah, I think
Explain,
I
answer.
Tim.
do. I
Explain, Tim.
explain
Explain.
though. I
For
want
for
go
those
ahead.
who don't know, explain, Tim.
All right,
See, and
so
fix it.
no, seriously. The reason why I say that because it comes from one of my favorite movies, Goodfellas. At the end, a rat and a snitch. A snitch is somebody
Good
that
movie.
is a civilian. They're going to tell the story because they want to make sure that the other person gets the blame. A rat will do anything to protect themselves, including throw everybody under the bus. A
Ah,
rat is
well,
most
true.
likely you're more connected to the person you're ratting on, so it's seen as a form of betrayal.
So Frank Lucas was
Ah,
a rat.
Frank Lucas
Was a
was a
rat.
rat.
Was a rat. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I get it now.
So civilian snitch. Okay.
I just don't understand the whole concept of this criminal conversation. Like,
Well, I'm just answering a question that Ray
no, I'm
asked.
just saying it's criminal. Like, it's criminal behavior, right? Like, we devolved from, not devolved. I'm just using that word, but we went um from the election to the state of black affairs in some ways and how we come together as community, and somehow we always devolve into criminality. Like
I just think it was a topic that he asked.
I know I'm just making a joke. I'm just being a little bit,
Yeah. No,
but
but
We're
it's kind of,
spiritual, Anthony. We gotta give entertainment.
but it's indicative, right, of how black culture is seen in America and even in our own eyes. No matter how much good we do or how much good we talk about, it always comes back to the criminal aspect, right? It always comes back to you guys are criminal. It always comes back to you.
Patient.
Right. So I mean, like we live that out in these like very benign ways that it doesn't seem like anything, but when we look at it, and this is what I was talking about with the internalized racism thing, it doesn't. It plays itself out in our conversations every single day. it plays itself out in these most benign ways where it's like, ah, we're just kind of talking about whatever, but we're really just underscoring all of those stereotypes and all of that anti-blackness that DJ Soulchild was talking about. And it's just I'm always fascinated by it because I teach high school kids. So when we talk about these things, I'm looking at it develop in different ways in high school students and the toxicity that exists in their world, the toxic things that happen in their relationships between each other, the way that the shade room or some other places are influencing young kids. And look, they don't watch the shade room. High school kids, like my older ones that graduated, they looked at the shade room. The ninth and 10th graders, they're not looking at the shade room. They get everything from TikTok.
From TikTok.
And so I asked my daughter today, 14 years old, where do you get your information from? TikTok. Now, she lives with me. So clearly, if she lives with me, she's getting some information that fights all that stuff on TikTok. But the snitching and that conversation and all of that and the glorification of the criminalizing of our culture, that is a real thing for them. We have these conversations, but it's glorified to them. And I've got kids who live in a district where, and I said this to them, y'all want to be thugs, y'all want to be this, y'all want to be that. And trust me, my school, I teach in a very specialized technical computer-based workplace learning school. So we don't have what I had at Stanford High, right? I was at Stanford High for the last 2 years. We don't have what my homeboy has at Brian McMahon High School, which is also in Norwalk, or some of these other places. I had gang members in my class. And I knew that from day one at Stanford High. And we connected because I come from where they come from. Where I am now, we don't have any of that stuff. But we have kids who go home and eat every day. They don't have to struggle for anything. They're wearing $1,000 jeans, $200 sweaters, and all the other kind of stuff. But they want to talk and act like they're Young Thug or snitching and all the other kind of stuff. And I explained to them, y'all are living a life that most of us wanted when we were your age.
Comfortable.
Right. You didn't have to duck from bullets. You didn't have guns pointed in your face. You didn't have to run almost every other day. Your moms didn't walk past somebody whose head just got blown off and the gunman is going past her. You didn't have bullets come through your window like I did and lodge themselves in your dressers and all of that. You didn't have any of that stuff. So when the cops came around, we still weren't telling. Didn't care what happened. Oh, did you see that? Didn't see a thing. But you were standing right there. Temporary blindness, sir. No idea.
Yeah, but make it a system where we could be safe telling, because the history has shown that when that happens, we usually suffer the consequences from that.
Do you think it starts in the household? Like if we were to make it
I think
deeper,
it
do you
starts
think
with
it
the
comes
law,
from
bro. I think it starts with the
think about it from this aspect. When we were younger, right? You get in trouble, you get a spanking. Your mom
yeah. I
say
got
you
my
better not go
whooping.
back to
Yeah,
school and tell her what I did, right? Blind loyalty is a real thing in the community. And you know that there's certain law because you don't want to say anything because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want to be seen as a snitch, whatever. But I also think it's being glorified right now to be somebody that you're not. Like Ant just talked about it. Like they wearing $1,000 jeans and they eat 3 meals a day, but yet they go on TikTok and listen to these streamers and listen to these people and play Grand Theft Auto. And now they like, this is how I relate. This is how people are gonna view me in a respected way. So they really think that they're living that life. And you don't have to, But so many people, so many kids, especially down here, they carry guns, they carry switches because it's rapped about. That's all they hear. That's what they hear. That's gonna get them that cred, whatever this imaginary street cred is. If you're not in the streets,
but
It's all
my
about.
thing is, go ahead.
I think it's all about wanting to be somebody who is looked good upon or respected. Everybody wants to be somebody,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. So they look for examples. They don't see them. They find bad examples or the wrong examples, which are in their environment, and in the end, sometimes they just become a product of the environment. How do you actually tell them and enlighten them and educate them to not be this way or to not be a product of their environment?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
the real question.
And that depends on where you grow up, right? Like if you growing up in
Definitely.
Chicago, South Side, if you growing up in Memphis, if you growing up in St. Louis, you a product of your environment already. You're trying to survive. You're trying to literally survive every day. But that's gonna look different than you growing up in Fairfield County, Connecticut. That's gonna look different if you growing up in those areas.
But not so much, Tim, because Ray grew up here. Tim, you've been here, right?
Back to your point, and I think also I found it interesting because when I first went to Greenwich, I said, wow, there's a lot of ghetto people here. What's going on? How this happen? Because I had never seen so many white people in my life. I'm from Atlanta. I moved up there. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And then my mom explained it. She goes, oh, nah, like they're plucked from different areas of Connecticut,
Yeah.
Bridgeport, Hartford, New York, down south,
Yeah,
and they
because you
just have that
remember,
mentality.
right? Because I went to school there, but I lived in Bridgeport, so yeah, we're
Yeah.
plugged. We're plugged. Yeah,
And your mom did a
definitely.
great job being like, yeah, like don't forget where you came from, but also recognize how you can fit in. She did
Yeah,
that
how
with
you
all
go?
of us. And I thought
Yeah,
that was so important, growing up with you and Tim and Andre and everybody, like just seeing how you guys were able to uh be comfortable in your own space. Cause I never switched up who I was, but I always recognized the privilege that I had by living in Greenwich and going to the high school, and it propelled me for college and so on and so forth. But when you talk about these kids that live in these cities that they don't have the fortunate of the boats and the houses, it's tough. That's all they see. Every day is a struggle, every day is survival. So I think it's safe to say we were privileged, but we used our privilege because there's nothing wrong with being privileged, right? It's about you recognizing that you have privilege. It's
right.
recognizing that you can do something with it. Because I was a big brother for years in Philly, and I would talk to kids, and they'd be like, "My struggle is real. I can't make it out." That mentality alone is already killing them. And I feel like unless they see somebody that can actually do it, they're not going to believe it. But how many
Right.
people do you see and gangs and violence? Those are the people that you look up to in the communities. They got money, they got respect, they have motion, as the kids call it, right? They're not trying to look at the people that going
They're
home
the
and eating three
authority
meals
figures, the
and
father
whatnot.
figures.
But that's what
Yeah,
Tony. How do I say your name? I don't want to mess your name up.
O'Neal.
That's how Tennille said this, right?
Tanil.
So Tennille put it this way. He said, "Everybody wants to be somebody,"
Mm-hmm.
and I think that this glorification, what they promoted to us for years, and this is why we had a conversation about Jamaican culture and African American culture, right? They have a cultural identity in the fact that they are Jamaican, in the Jamaican struggle, in the Jamaican history, in the Jamaican heritage, in the Jamaican people, right? There is a solid identity there. That doesn't mean that there aren't any fractures or any beefs and all that other kind of stuff, but we don't have a set of history that starts with us. In our opinion, history starts in 1619. When that's not true, right? Our history did not start on the shores of a beach in Virginia when they rolled up here with the first slaves. But for us inside of America, and this is why I understand Trick Daddy, I don't want to be associated with Africanism or Africa, because I think to him, because I don't want to be associated with enslavement. I don't want to be associated with this idea that I am this. Now, we can debate that all day long, but our kids still have no real cultural identity. Our kids are still pumped the cultural identity that the television wants them to have, that we grew up hearing, that the news says that in every news cycle, murder, murder, death, kill, murder, death, kill. Oh, look, there's a cat in the tree and a white person saved him. Everything else is black, right? Everything else is criminalized. Everything else is criminality.
Black is bad.
Black is bad, white good. I'm reading a
White,
book
right,
now
black,
called
stay back, mellow yellow.
From every
Yup.
So
yeah.
there's a book called The History of White People that I just started reading. White
That's
and
the
black,
wait. That's the title.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
White and black are concepts. They're not true. There is no race divisions. There are ethnicities, but we all are the same race. We talk about the word slave. The word slave comes from the word Slav because the Slavic people were enslaved before we were, and they are
Mm-hmm.
white, and they were fairer skinned than us. And the reason that they were enslaved because of their fairer skin, right? So when we talk about all of these things, we don't have an identity in America as Black people. We have the identity that was fed to us. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
we have this complex that we want to. Civil rights did not ask for equality. Let's be honest. Civil rights asked for white people to leave us the hell alone
Hmm.
and allow us our own dignity and
Mm-hmm.
allow us our own space and allow us the not access to humanity, but for y'all to see us as human, for y'all to see us in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
ask for any of that other stuff. It didn't ask for us to have access to your water fountains,
Just to be civil.
just to be civil and let
Just to
us
be
live
civil.
our lives. But they gave us something we didn't ask for and we ran with it. And it's like, oh, that's what we wanted. That's not what Dr. King was talking about. He didn't ask for that, but they
Get
gave us a
comfortable.
form of something. And we have been suffering from accepting that ever since. Do I believe in segregation? No. We self
Sorry, my
segregate,
dog.
right? Black folk will live among black folk, and white folk will live among white folk if you give them a chance. The problem we have is that we have no cultural identity, and the vacuum gets filled with all of the stereotypes and all of this, like the conversation around snitching. White folk telling each other all the time,
Mm-hmm.
They
all the
do.
time.
Ah, yeah.
You
There's
live in
nothing
Spain,
wrong.
you know. Trust me.
There's
My
nothing wrong
God.
with telling on somebody that did something bad. Especially, look, if you're going to bring violence to my neighborhood, bruh, you gotta go.
Yeah, yeah. We have families. What are we doing?
Yeah, you gotta go, right?
In
To
any
your
Here's
point,
ideal
and I have a
situation,
question. I have
yeah.
a question because everything you said was so real.
It's
We talk
spot
about
on. Yeah.
there's no. Give me 1 second. So my question to you is when we talk about there's a large lack of culture. When we talk about culture, culture is what collective behavior, values, beliefs. Do you feel that and I forgot who asked this earlier. Do you feel like we can have people in our community that will come together and set those core value beliefs, or do you think it just has to just be everybody just accepting of everybody else's culture? Like because
Yeah,
I
because
do
this
feel
would Don. Yeah, this is
go.
what Donna V. Donna V said this lot
I
because
think
we had
yeah,
The
this
vein, the vein,
conversation.
the vein, the
the
vein,
van,
Davin,
yeah.
the vein. Yeah,
I
Davin,
yeah,
man,
spoke
my,
to his name
yeah.
four
But
times.
the thing is, there are people in the negative. Like he's saying, like the main thing that influences the TikTok and let's say music and movies. These are all things that people that look like us are also doing as well. They're the ones doing it, and we're like, oh, he looks like me. He's a gangster. I
Hmm.
can do this. And he said that you don't snitchy, but you buy this sweater and you do this, and I'm all for it. So there are people like there, but the positive ones, they, as Anthony said, they don't rise to the top. They don't come up
No,
to the top. It's the negative ones that are all on the social media. All
I mean, they
well,
die, they get shot, they get
because
killed.
those are the
The
ones that are
positive
not
ones.
being
all of
portrayed
them,
as
not all of them.
not well, not all of them, definitely not, but they are the ones that we're seeing the most of, right? Like, how many
Yeah,
times are they going to focus on positive things? Like, um, when you talk about all the positive things that happen in the community, they're not going to focus on that. They're going to talk about Young Thug and his trial, and they're
yeah.
going to talk about Trick Daddy. I was going to say this to you earlier, and you're an educated brother. I don't know if Trick Daddy had that conceptualization in his head when he
Right.
made that comment.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
I
don't
think
so.
know
he
if
just said it. I think he just
I
said
think
it.
you just said it.
I
So
think
I
he
think
just said it.
somebody like you would be his perfect lawyer to be like, this is what he meant. And the sad truth is that that man did not mean that.
He
That
didn't.
man
yeah,
meant
yeah.
something totally different.
But we don't know
Okay,
where
that's
he
the
came
issue as
from,
well.
right? It was inside of him. We don't know where it came from, but we do know he's older than us and he understood apartheid, right? And he understood all of the stuff that we grew up with watching Africa and the things that happened to African people. He grew up when Nelson Mandela was out of jail and then
Mm-hmm.
put into jail. He grew up looking at all of that stuff and grew up with us being told that Africa was full of poor, destitute people who were starving,
Malnourished.
and all of the malnourished.
Famished and
So, and to be African was a slur against people. So he grew up in that era, and so I get it. So I'm not. That's why I said I'm not really mad at him. So that's his cultural background, right?
But
For lack of,
he's a role model though.
but
That's
he
the
doesn't
prop.
see
That's
himself
the
as a role
whoa,
model,
whoa,
and
whoa,
he
whoa,
shouldn't
whoa.
be a
I
role
have my
He's
model.
not
he
a
opinion on
role
is.
that.
model.
But he's not
He
to
is.
I'm
me.
not
Stop
a
it.
role
He
He's a
model.
is.
role model.
To
He is.
no, so
Once you have a big
stardom
following,
that
you
doesn't
have the
make it.
That
responsibility.
does not make you a role
Exactly.
model, guys.
No, it's true.
I
Okay.
don't
No,
think.
no,
No.
no.
All right. So
Some
sorry
people
to cut
see
you,
him,
Anthony.
see
Sorry
him
to
as
cut you,
that.
Anthony.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you, Anthony. But I believe that if you have a big following, it means that you're somebody important to a certain set of people. And automatically, you should, even though a lot of them don't take up this plight, you should have the responsibility of choosing your words wisely, representing yourself in a way that would benefit your followers or benefit your identity or what you say yourself to be. It's not usually the case. We find that these influencers, celebrities, they did, and I'm not saying anybody isn't allowed to be their self. But it should be more than being yourself. It should be about being for your people now.
So
You're not
Right.
responsibility.
yourself
But
anymore.
Right.
can I grab that because I got to go in a few minutes? My
Mhm.
All
child
right.
just texted me. So I'll put it this way, and I'm so glad you brought that up. When you have a big following, when you have this, you have a responsibility. That's why they know who to put in front of the camera. That's why they know who to give the following to. That's why they know who to give the money to because they know what they're going to say.
Right.
Yep.
And so
Right.
they know how they're going to act and they know that people are going to follow them because they have the platform, but they know they don't deserve the platform. And so they amplify these voices. And so it's those of us, we don't have the space. And one of the things that I walked away from this election thinking, because I am still pissed off and I rail about it. I'm like, y'all gonna play in my face, I'm gonna play in your face. I don't have no time for nobody. But one of the things I walked away with was we don't have a voice in media. And so my mission is to start a media company that gives us voice in media. And so I've been looking into that. I've been talking to my former high school students who are interested because they play in the spaces we need to get into, right? They understand the social media landscape in ways that we don't even fathom. And I think the next iteration of media or just culture and society, even if I think it's sad, is in the social media space.
Hmm.
That is where you're going to reach, talk to, and meet people. That's where you're going to change hearts and minds. And so, how do we flood this space, right? But they, like I said, they know who to give everything to. And at the end of the day, I'll answer Tim's question before I go. I think that we could have, we could rally around a collective idea as Black folks, no matter where we come from, because no matter where you are in the world as a Black person, you still deal with essentially at its core the same struggle. And it is the fact that when you walk into a place, your skin speaks for itself.
The struggle makes us one.
The struggle makes us one no matter what our geography is. And so we have to start understanding that yes, there are differences in our household because culture starts in your household, right? My doctoral studies are around epistemology and where knowledge comes from and the locality of knowledge and how it is that we are failing Black kids in schools because we discount their knowledge because we work on a colonized Eurocentric epistemology that says that everything is westernized. And so we bastardize African American Black culture and thought. But that's a whole other show. But anyway,
Man, that was the best point. No
Yeah.
cap, like that was one
Yeah.
of the best points you've made, and I 100% agree. In the
Yeah.
household, we need to have another combo just about that alone.
We
right,
will. Don't
right.
worry.
But all of this is to say I think that we can rally around an ideal, and I think that right now is the best time. But what you're starting to see is this fraction between or this fracture between Black men and Black women. And you have a lot of sisters though that are saying, "Don't blame Black men because Black men showed up." But you see this thing cutting through the middle that says, "Well, Black men voted for." That's why one of the things I said was we didn't really lose that many Black men because Black men always voted Republican. There's a small section of them. We lost about 8 to 10%. Okay, that's fine. 10% is not a huge loss. It's enough to move a little stuff, but it wasn't the whole thing. We've got to figure out how to not destroy not the nuclear family, but the nuclear or the how do I say it? The cultural family, because we are one culture with different subcultures in it, but we are one culture.
At
And
the
the
end of the
question,
day.
how do we maintain that and defend that against the onslaught of these folks who want to divide us, because they understand that if we got together, there were 1 million slaves, enslaved people in America. They outnumbered the slaveholders. How? The
Same in
slaveholders
Jamaica.
were so afraid that they bought a plot of land in Africa, called it Libya, and said, let's send them back. Because when we free them, they're gonna kill us. And they said, no, let's colonize them, send them back, and say that they colonize everybody else. But they were afraid. But we don't know the history. I tell my students all the time, there's so many of you. If y'all got together, one voice, one band, one sound, decided y'all all leaving this building, what could we do? Nobody can stop you. So stop thinking that you are one person alone. That's the problem. If we get around that shared common struggle, that shared identity, that shared everything, I think we can do this with leaders inside of each community who speak with one voice, but specific to their own cultural relevance in the community. So I think we can do it. I think we have to have the appetite to do it, and we need to create the spaces and the platforms to amplify that voice. You guys should be in spaces where people can see you and hear you, and not just where only a few people can hear you, right? There needs to be something that connects all of these little different things that are happening among Black men and Black women, and pushing that out. But what we see is always the conversation around relationships, around, well, this is Black women talking this, and well, do we go 50-50 on this or 50-50 on that? That's the low-hanging stuff. Grow up. How the hell do we get out of where we're under right now, so that Donald Trump never happens again? So that when Black people run, I don't care if they're talking about poisoning us with fluoride or anything else that somebody thinks is poisonous, I'm going to vote for you. Why? Because if everybody else can get behind voting for somebody because they have a shared cultural identity, then what the heck is wrong with us? And I don't care. I'm 100%. I don't care if you're Black and you're not Republican. I threw that in there. But no, in all seriousness, we do not give ourselves the chance to be one. We talk about it. We fight about it. But where I grew up, there were Black people hanging on the wall in my school. I knew who Malcolm X was in the 3rd grade. I knew who Martin Luther King was. I knew Mary McLeod Bethune. I knew all of these different Black people. But in Greenwich, y'all ain't know none of them if you went through this school system from kindergarten to 12th grade. They don't talk to you about that. So where are we as the elders now? Because y'all are all elders now, right? I'm 44. I mean, you guys are in your 20s and 30s. You guys are the unks now.
We are. It's crazy.
And so it comes down to you. So when we ask these questions, the thing you have to do is now turn around, look in the mirror and say, can I do this? And who is going to help me to do this, so that we have this shared mind, this shared mentality, and we put our voices together to get louder and louder and louder, because it's y'all now. It's y'all. It's not the world anymore. It's y'all. And these young kids need you. I'm an MBK mentor, my brother's keeper. And at the end of the day, all of these little kids who we took on a retreat, it changed their lives. And I have kids now walking up to me in the hallway. How do I get an MBK? How do I get an MBK? How do I get an MBK?
More people like you.
Change is happening. Change is happening.
Change is happening.
But I gotta go because I gotta pick up my kid in like 12 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey,
Bless
it was a pleasure, man.
bro.
It's a blessing.
Blessings,
Yeah, thank you.
Anthony.
But I appreciate y'all. Good to meet you too. And
Yeah, man.
yeah, just call me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right.
And
All
if we
right.
could be of any
Please.
support, please let us know, because I wanna support you all the way in that. Please just we'll keep in touch, but I'll hit you up.
Yes, sir. All right,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
All
All
right.
right. Peace
Yes.
out.
All right, man. We're gonna wrap up the show, man. If y'all wanna before we end the show, man. Let me ask y'all both this. Tim, I'm gonna ask you too. Um, if there was one message you could give right now about what has happened with the election, with everything, and black people moving forward, what is one message you would give to Neil?
I would say that um, we don't always have to depend on politics to be our final decision. It can start from home. It can start from our communities, our friendships, the people we meet, you know? And it doesn't even have to be in the community. About outside of community. If you know somebody from outside of the community, you shed a small light on something that you know of, for example, which would in the end, might spark a change in their mind. And hopefully they might carry this fire with them to another place. But in the end, we just need to come together, iron out our wrinkles, as a people, and identify that we are a struggling people and that we have a struggle. But
Yeah.
first, we have to identify that we have a problem. If we don't identify that we have a problem, we won't look for the solution, and we will just comfortable, docile, and the problem will continue.
What them said, and we all keep searching and searching.
Searching and searching. Yeah, man.
All right, man. David, what do you think?
I think the entire conversation we touched on a lot of things, and for me, what resonated was the lack of education. Like, I think that's the key thing. Like the information and the education that people are receiving out there, it has so much value and it impacts us so much that we need to be fully responsible and maybe find a way where we can impart the education that we have onto other people. Because I see us here, and when you said that we're all civilians, I'm like, we're seeing things from a perspective. We're on top of the mountain looking down on a lot of people, and we have the same struggle, but we don't identify exactly with their struggle, how they're seeing the world. So if we can, impart our knowledge on them, that might just change the entire situation for them. As Anthony said, there's even mentoring one person, changing his mentality, letting him know, like, don't look at TikTok for your information only. Go read a book, Google
True.
something, like, research something. Just the educational value would be enough, I feel, to change a lot about
A lot.
everything, you know?
Most
And the
respect,
right
man. Tim.
education.
Yeah, no, that's it. The correct
Right
information. Like
education.
there's so much information out there that even for we are victims of it too. Because I caught herself like here, like we had this very serious conversation, and then I saw it with Anthony. I could see on his face, like when we started talking about the stitching, he's like, "How did we get here?" Like, so we are also victims of it at times as
Yeah.
well. Like we're not immune to it. So at times we have to also catch ourselves with that information because I follow Shade Room and all that stuff, because
Me too.
Mhm.
we need the entertainment and all that stuff, and we do it, and it makes us all more docile. But as I said, like it's just the education that we put out there, and we receive out there, how we interpret it, and if we can share some of that and help unite us, be a better people.
Big ups, man. Big ups to yourself, man. And Tim, end us off, man.
I think I want to say we're going to be okay, right?
Mm.
This election was very emotionally draining. People are afraid. People are unsure, but we're going to be okay. And I know this because we've endured worse, right? We've been a part of. We survived COVID. Many people didn't, but we did, and we continue to shock ourselves by the amount of endurance that we have, emotional endurance. And just like you brothers said, it takes continued learning and the right sources, but also recognizing, like Tanil said, about we if there's a problem, we have to admit it first. Because if we pretend like there is no problem, then we'll just be delusional for the rest of our lives. But my last message is that it's going to take a lot of uncomfortableness in order to grow. But that's what it's going to take to grow. And as long as we're willing to be uncomfortable, then we'll be successful and we'll be fine.
Just like that. Let me hit y'all with it. Go ahead.
That's the biggest problem. We're afraid to be uncomfortable for a time. We're not willing to make the sacrifice that, okay, I'll be uncomfortable in my generation, but I know that my grandkids at least will see some benefit of me being uncomfortable. And, but we're afraid to be uncomfortable, and that's just it.
Yeah, man. On the biggest side, on the other side of fear is where life starts, man. We gotta get out of our comfort zone. I agree on that. Let me hit y'all with a dope outro. This is Just the Thought podcast. Your host Ray, co-host Tim Frazier, and yay, Yardman podcast. Yes, big up the one them called Tonil, the one them called Davin. All right. Check them out on Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Central European Time. Thursday, 2 p.m. Central European Time. Jamaica, that's 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 8 a.m. Big ups, Yadman Podcast. This is Just a Thought Podcast. We are out. Y'all take care.
Have a good one, gentlemen.
Yeah, man.
Respect.
Respect, man. Respect.
Yeah, man.
Respect. Yeah.